Thank you, Miko. Welcome, everyone. Glad to kick off with the keynote today here. First of all, I want to welcome all of you to the SRE Day. We are glad to host this event. Miko and I go together. I used to speak on the chaos engineering conferences. So we are honored to host this event, first time that's happening in the US. There's a lot of innovations practice going on in the space of SRE. So we're glad to host this event. Today, I'm going to talk about the boring subject of how developers and SREs can work together to make things better in their organizations. We're also innovating in this space. That's the real reason why I want to talk about it. So we'll go into that in a bit. Before that, just a bit about me. I'm Mukkara. I lead the product development of reliability area inside Harness. My formal title is Head of Chaos Engineering. I came here. I don't cause chaos, right? So I lead the product development around chaos. So I also am one of the co-founders of, co-creators of the open source project in chaos engineering, Litmus Chaos, which is now hosted at CNCF. I also lead the product development here at for SRM, site service reliability management, and also doing some innovation in the space of incident management, right? So a bit of story around Harness. Harness is the modern software delivery platform. It all started with CD, but now the platform or the company has multiple products that cater to various needs in the space of software delivery, starting from IDP that's built off of Backstage, and some security scanners, and then the core foundation of CI/CD, and also my favorite part, integrated resilience engineering. And then it goes all the way into cloud cost management and engineering insights. As you can see, the focus today is around what appeals to the SRE personas. So let's get into that. So we'd be touching the topics of incidents and recovery, right? That's kind of the hot topic or a daily job for some of you or many of you. So what do you think when it comes to incidents and recovery? All right, the most common topics that we think of is how do you reduce the number of incidents? And you can only reduce, you cannot make them zero, right? So that's impossible. And when they do happen, how do I make them go away faster, right? So how do you recover or reduce the mean time to recover, right? So these are the two common, abbreviations or the terms that we live in, right, in our daily lives, right? MTTF, mean time to fail, and MTTR, mean time to repair, right? So the common notion is that this is associated with SREs, right? These terms are used by SREs. Developers, they think about some of the metrics, right? And the people in the ops are the ones that deal with it. But do you really think developers are associating themselves with MTTR and MTTF? Not really, right? And DevOps, this is another concept. DevOps for most people mean CI and CD, right? DevOps means Jenkins. And then I'll get to it. So let's actually see some of the common practices in dealing with MTTRs and MTTFs, even though they are attributed to the site reliability engineers, right? So these are largely part of the incident management, right? Because even though you are supposed to repair the incident, you should ultimately contribute to the reduction of the number of incidents, right? And what do SREs do on our daily life, in the daily lives, to make the number of incidents less and less, right? So you need to keep innovating in the space of infrastructure, keep the redundancy, going on, get the better config in place, try to automate things when the new infrastructure is been getting configured. And then when the incidents do happen, they try to, as good developers, as great developers, SREs, that's what they are, you try to auto recover from the incidents as much as possible, right? So, and when it's not possible to recover quickly, you also kick in the disaster recovery processes, right? This is what SREs do, right? Ultimately, they own the incident recovery. They are also measured in how are you trying to reduce the number of incidents. And reality check is there are developers also, right? The calls go to developers. SREs manage the incidents, but developers actually participate in bringing back. At least this is what happens in Harness, right? And this is what happens in most of the orgs, right? Many developers who are the SMEs, core experts, they are called in. They're supposed to get in if it's a P0, right? And they're supposed to go back and do something in their products. Hey, make sure that this does not happen, and make sure that you test, and like you're held accountable for why did you not find it in the first place, right? So developers are going to be accountable, right? And during the incident recovery process, they also debug and find out. They contribute to the new runbooks, right? And also they go back and put in some new stuff in terms of the service level indicators in the product, right? So just imagine your organization not having an effective process to involve the developers in the incidents. We are all SREs, but if you don't have the developers proactively working with us, you are still going to stuck with, trying to get better infrastructure. You will never get the best budgets, right? So you're going to keep on asking and waiting for the infrastructures, and then the DR is never a great step, right? So basically, I'm arriving at if you want to reduce as SREs the number of incidents or recovery time, you need to work with developers, make sure that you're giving the right feedback, taking the right help, the best help that you could get in order to get the recovery faster and faster, right? It is the key stuff. But let's actually talk about the reality check. 80 to 90% of the organizations, incident management is in place, right? They know each other. They're all, programmed to come and join the Slack channels. The incident management tool gets them in onto the recovery process, and then they start learning about, what to do, right? And some of the ways in which they do is there are certain runbooks that are out there, and then you start processing. And then you also get to know each other when you run game days. This happens in many organizations too. Once in a month, once in a quarter, or more often, SREs and developers come together to run chaos game days, right? And obviously, during the incidents, they get to say, hello, hi. No, that's later. First, recover the incident, right? So we'll see about it, right, in the postmortem. And then once the postmortem is done, developer goes back to what they're doing the product development, and SREs go back to trying to do better infrastructure or trying to put better config, right? That's about it, right? So when the incidents are not happening, are the SREs and developers, are they collaborating, right? The postmortems are also part of the incidents, right? Do they really collaborate? No, they don't, right? They wait for the next incident, they go about it, right? So that's the key message that I'm trying to drive at today, right? And what are the challenges in the absence of not collaborating in the lower environments or not collaborating when there are no incidents, right? So the typical challenges are runbooks after postmortem. Runbooks are not updated. You're pushing in new code changes. Runbooks are never updated, right? They're supposed to, but you will find them when they don't work, right? And then, the people are not updated, right? So it's like if there are incidents, they're assigned on a per module basis, and they get called in L1, L2 type of thing. And then when they cannot solve, they call the SMEs, they call the architects, they call the distinguished engineers. Finally, they call the CTO, CEO, and then the lawyers also sometimes, right, when they're not able to recover. So this is what happens in 80 to 90% of the organizations. You may be doing much better. I'm just talking about in general what happens, right? Um, and then sometimes runbooks are missing. You are introducing a new feature, new module, and you are already delayed. But you just like we miss the documentation most of the time, right? Until someone points out. Just like that, runbooks are also missing, right? Until the incident happens, right? So that's a problem. And then the people are also are coded, pre-programmed who to call, right? And you call a person, they are sick, right? Of course, PagerDuty and all, they get integrated into the calendar, but I don't keep my calendars up to date. I'm always working, but I'm also on vacation, right? So these are all some possibilities, right? And I just let go of some people without knowing. I just released a feature, and he or she was the main person, right? I let go of the entire team, and now I still have my SLAs to my customers, right? So these are some of the challenges, right? So in summary, what I'm saying is the incident resolution in most of the organization is happening at the best effort or guesstimate basis, right? You still have an idea of how to recover, but it may not be the best estimate, right? It's just a guesstimate. And let's talk about, what do we do? What can we do? What can you do, right? So this I just picked it up from the internet. This is a well-known process on the response pattern cycle. You prepare, you respond, and then you review the postmortem, right? And mostly, as I said, SREs own this process. Developers, come in on the need basis, right? So the solution really is to make the same processes a little bit more dev-centric, right? Make the devs feel part of this incident response management cycle, and try not to make it optional, right? Try to make it mandatory. It's almost impossible in the modern DevOps right now for the developers not to participate in the deployment process, right? CI and CD, they're always there. But incident management, not so mandatory. The trick really is to bring in processes, tools to make it mandatory and to participate in the preparation and response, right? So today, a lot of tools are there. SLO management, that's how you measure the reliability, and they're all helping. Incident call management, I talked about PagerDuty and a few other incident call management, and then you have the runbooks. These are all kind of reactive solutions, right? They're all working well, okay, but for the challenges that I mentioned, these are kind of termed as reactive, right? And let's talk about some of the proactive approaches, right? Proactive approaches really are developers and SREs participate in making sure what to deploy, what not to deploy, right? Let's say that there is a service that's already having a lot of higher error budget burn, right? Developers simply go and, hey, I got a fantastic feature. Let me go and deploy on top of it. I'm already hurting. You're putting a new change, right? So SREs have no say in that, or developers don't give the feedback, right? So that's the guardrails. You need to integrate the deployment mechanism and the monitoring mechanism together, right? Also, chaos testing is another practice that is largely understood as something that needs to be done in production, something that needs to be done by SREs in the prod environment. But in reality, proactively, if you do this as much as possible, as much as automation as possible in the lower environment, you are contributing a lot from the developers in making sure that the right amount of SLAs are there, what are the type of reliability challenges that developers can face, and they'll start getting better and better in contributing to the incident response. And then my favorite topic here is how to make or how to measure the developers if they are really ready to start responding, right? And in the reactive approach, the incident management solutions are really SRE focused. In the proactive or the modern possible solutions, it's really developer and SRE focused together, right? So guardrails, I talked about, you have SLO measurement in place. Make sure that before you deploy the changes, you're considering what's the error budget burn and that's happening. If the service is already hurting, don't put more hurt, even though it's a fantastic feature that you're delivering, right? And chaos testing in lower environment, it's in my experience, a lot of organizations have started doing it. We built the enterprise solution about a couple of years ago. A lot of large organizations have it now in place to put chaos engineering in the lower environments, and that's working well, right? If nothing else, your developers are aware of the deeper design issues in the product when they do chaos testing along with their functional testing. And that helps in incident recovery time, right? So you don't need to find how my product works when something goes down during the incident response time. I already knew how it worked because some issues happened when I did chaos testing in the lower environments, right? And then response readiness. This is the key question that I started asking, right? Are you ready to help respond to the incident, probably a P0 or probably a P1, right? Somebody is ready, but may not be all of them. There's various grades of readiness, right? So this is really the analytics, right? And how do we find that? So do you have a way to measure how good are my developers in responding to the incidents, right? We call them as incident readiness, response readiness scores, right, internally. So the right way to do this is simulate incidents, of course, not in production, but in lower environments as much as possible. Really make them respond to see whether you got the right runbooks, are they aware of how to follow the runbooks, and then, if not through a tool, at least manually start measuring and then assign a score, right? So this developer A is good, B is not so good. So you need to go through some training and then at least go and update. A is better, a better person to respond to this type of incident. B, we need to train. So in case A leaves, we have B, right? And similarly, which service is having the best engineers to respond to, right? Maybe there's a new service or old service. There a lot of incidents are happening, but people are not really having the real expertise, or whoever were the experts, they just left the company or moved somewhere else, and now we are left with no people to respond with the same expertise that we used to have earlier, right? And similarly, start measuring which is the right service that's having the best readiness scores, right? So the key here is really measure the readiness of developers and SREs for incident response management, right? And this is just a summary of thought, right? Whenever you're doing the build and deploy in the lower environments, try to get service level indicators into the lower environments as well, so that you have an idea of developers having what are the SLIs, and they're not discovering that in the production environment when incidents happen, right? And get this expertise, and then pass it on to the SREs. Hey, I just found these are the 3 SLIs that will help, and can you also put in the production, start measuring these SLIs and corresponding SLOs. So that's a knowledge that you can give as a developer to the SRE team, so that you're working together in a better manner, right? So it's a summary of what can developers do to help our SRE friends in doing better in terms of incident management, get actively involved in the lower environments, own the development of SLIs. As a developer, you should own what are the service level indicators, not really the SREs, and try to automate the chaos tests in lower environments. And are you looking at the right metric for resilience? And then keep measuring the readiness of developers, and then also don't push the changes onto services which are already hurting, right? So some of the good practices. DevOps really means, it's like give the feedback from ops to here, but this can also happen in the incident response management. That's kind of the summary, right? Quickly, Harness is innovating in the space, right? So we are trying to provide certain ways to measure the incident response readiness scores, and so you can take some proactive actions and also try to put this SLOs automatically in the lower environment, so developers don't need to act like SREs. Something is already done for them, etc., etc. Right? Thought for the day is if you're doing reactive incident response cycle, there's going to be developer toil, right? You're going to put a lot of pressure on them. But if you're doing proactively the response management, your developers are actually contributing to the incident response in a positive way. So there is developer productivity, right? So you're not hurting the developers, rather, they are contributing positively back to the overall reliability of the services. So that's about it. Sorry if I rush in a bit. I was getting time reminders from Miko. But I'll be available here during the day if you have some questions, what we're doing, how can we help, what other industry players are doing, how we are different, all that stuff. Would love to know what you're all doing in this space and get some feedback as well. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of, practicing knowledge on the floor here, you as SREs, right? I manage the SRE teams. I'm not an SRE myself, right? So obviously I can learn a lot of things from you all.
So with and without cost engineering, we have any kind of a comparative study, because chaos engineering itself is a involved subject,
Yep.
bringing the software developer do more, right? Do the right thing, but do more.
Great question. With and without chaos engineering, with chaos engineering, you're giving honest data, right? How resilient you are. Without chaos engineering, you're really taking a guesstimate, right? How resilient you are, your developers need to tell, or your customers need to tell. But with chaos engineering, you can have metrics like resilience coverage, right? What are the possible ways your services can go down, and how many of them have you tested? And that gives you some data, right? And yeah.
So what I was looking for, like we did it for some large engagement, and what's the benefit we got? It's pretty evident. It's beneficial, no doubt. But any kind of comparative would help me sell into my own organization if I do the right thing.
So there are certain policies that we are advising. Great question, difficult question as well, right? How do you sell chaos engineering to your own developers, right? So you need to sell to the leaders that if there is incident and that is getting unchecked without corresponding chaos tests in the last 6 months, then you're not doing your job. That's one way of telling, right? So the engineering leaders are also responsible, especially if you have SaaS products. They're responsible for reliability uptake, right? And what are you doing as an engineering leader? Are you putting right policies? One of the policy is to cover chaos testing around the frequently repeating incidents within 6 months of time, right? And if they say, no, I don't care, that's a difficult thing to say for anyone, right? So go and get that buy-in from the engineering leaders, bring in a policy, and then push it top down. That's what works, at least for us. Yeah.
Do you mind if I just, so Uma and I, we go, a while back now, and we've both been doing chaos engineering for a while. And the top tip I can give you with that is to not call it chaos engineering. Just call it reliability testing, and just goes so much smoother, It's it's great. Like I literally wrote a book about it. I give it to people, and like, yeah, that's great. We should do it. Let's not do that. And then you call it reliability, and it's easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, just 2 cents for me.
Oh, that's great. That's really true. And people, I've seen automated reliability testing, ART is one of the common things as a practice. But now, last year or so, I see a lot of new chaos RFPs coming out. People are asking for solutions. So it's not so much that they don't know about chaos engineering. They do know. So that's an advantage that we have. We don't need to teach them why chaos, right? So people understand it.
All right. One more question from all the way back.
I'm sure you guys onboarded a lot of companies, and every customer will have their own journey. But I'm sure the patterns emerge. How would you suggest that a group that's new to chaos engineering would start?
Yeah, very difficult to tell them where to start, right? To be very honest. So we have rolled out some best practices, and the way we onboard is we actually help create hundreds of chaos experiments right away. We don't ask them to create chaos experiment, right? At least you have some set of chaos experiments, and then we ask them, these are the safe ones to run. So they're mostly worried about if I run chaos, somebody will come to know my problems that I've been, not comfortable in speaking. So as Miko said, try to mark this entire thing as a resilience testing. How resilient are you, right? So if you are doing out of 100 chaos experiments, let's say that you do first 20 of them and none of them fail, it's a reassurance that 20% coverage you got and you're resilient. Of course, we need to run another 80%. We might find some weakness, but good news is that you have got good resilience scores in the 20% areas. So that gets the teams together, and they will be open for automation of this 20%. And then there is a large buy-in from the key stakeholders across the board, and that's what works well, right? So don't scare them off. Try to win them.